Can I just say to all of you, thank you for coming out to Kumeū here today. Before I begin, can I just acknowledge Phil Greig and all of his team here at the Phil Greig Strawberry Gardens. Can I say thank you so much for hosting us and telling us your story, and congratulations on 35 years of business in this sector. It's quite something. It's also good to be here with Lou Upston, our Social Development and Employment spokesperson, and also Chris Pink, the great MP for this area and this electorate. And I want to say, Chris, thank you for what you do advocating for this region and all your work, particularly around flood recovery out here in West Auckland as well. It's been really fantastic. In the National Party flows the optimistic belief that if you work hard in the best country in the world, you should be able to get ahead. And that's the promise of New Zealand that we need to restore. Our goal must always be to help everyone lead lives of dignity, independence, self-reliance, and above all, work. Because work gives people something that welfare never can. Work is where we learn to show up on time, give it our best, get along with others, take directions and create value with our time and our effort. And of course, National will always champion a true sustainable safety net to help Kiwis in need. But our safety net's ultimate purpose cannot be to simply make some Kiwis' dependence on government a slightly less miserable experience in poverty. National does not want to see people who could be working trapped in welfare dependency. And that's why National will always insist on work as the central solution to poverty. It's actually the fair and compassionate thing to do. Now, perversely, under Labour, dependence on the government has increased massively, even in times of low unemployment and massive worker shortages, as has been experienced in a horticulture business like this one that we are here in today. There are now 60,000 more people on a job seeker unemployment benefit compared with when National left office just 6 years ago. And there are 35,000 more people who have been on that job seeker unemployment benefit for a year or longer. Now, we know it's a risk for young people to spend a prolonged time on a benefit, so helping them into the work was the specific aim of our Welfare That Works policy that we announced last year. And we are not going to give up on a future generation of Kiwis. Today we're announcing a new traffic light system to make it crystal clear to those on the job seeker unemployment benefit, regardless of their age, that there will be consequences for failure to comply with the obligations and requirements on them. Those requirements and obligations are simply that they are actively looking for work or preparing for work if they've been assessed as needing a little more time to be work ready. To be clear, we're not talking about people who are on the supported living payment because they cannot work. We're talking today about those who have been assessed as being able to work and are receiving a job seeker unemployment benefit. Under Labour, the number of sanctions imposed for breaching the conditions of the job seeker benefit in the 12 months to June was around half the number applied by National 6 years ago, even though there's been a 45% increase in the number of people on the job seeker benefit since then. So something's not adding up. So we're going to make some changes to remind people that they have rights in New Zealand to help when they need it, but they also have responsibilities to their fellow taxpayers, citizens, to do everything they can to get on a pathway off welfare and into work. I'm going to hand over to Louise to talk you through a little bit more of the detail around this policy.
Thank you, Christopher. As Christopher said, National wants to see fewer people on welfare and more people in work. This is not about simply about a sanction for being unemployed. We want to actually help those people into work. This is about sanctions for those who are not complying with their obligations that are part of the deal of receiving a job seeker benefit. We will introduce a traffic light system so that beneficiaries are in no doubt if they are at risk of financial sanctions. A green light means you're complying, and as long as you are complying, we would expect that you would be able to find a job. And that covers most of the job seekers most of the time. However, if you do breach the conditions of your benefit, for example, Work and Income's arranged a job interview for you, you don't turn up without sufficient reason, that will be considered a breach that triggers the orange light. 1 or 2 breaches will see additional requirements. You might need to check in more regularly with Work and Income. You might need to go on required training that will assist you, or perhaps more intensive case management. If there are 3 or more breaches, that's the red light. Sanctions step up and will include a new sanction of money management. where WINZ will manage your money, or mandatory community work experience of up to 3 months in a community organisation, iwi or council or the like, and or financial sanctions that may mean either a reduction or a suspension of your benefit. As I said, most people comply, but when they don't, they do expect that there will be action, and that's what taxpayers expect. And those beneficiaries, more importantly, could also be at risk of long-term dependency, and none of us want to see that. We will also require beneficiaries to apply for the job seeker benefit every 6 months instead of 12 months. That allows Work and Income to check in on them, to make sure that they are getting the support they require, as well as making sure they are still eligible. We'll be seeking documented proof that people are making job applications and attending interviews. We will also have a 1 month stand down for those who have a warrant out for their arrest and do not turn themselves in. And we will be indexing benefits to inflation. Those are the key changes. National wants to see more Kiwis off welfare and in work. Everyone who works has a responsibility to meet their work obligations, or they can expect there's consequences. So it makes sense if you are on a job seeker benefit under National, you will also be expected to meet your obligations or expect there will be consequences. Back to you, Christopher.
Thank you. Well, listen, can I say thanks, Louise? Louise is absolutely right. This is about rights and responsibilities, and it's about the welfare system supporting people while they look for work, not trapping them in dependency. Employment is going to offer people and their families more independence, more opportunity, and more money than welfare ever will. Under a national government, that welfare safety net will always be there for those who need it. However, our strong expectation is that those who are able to work should work, and the more people who are working and the fewer who are on welfare, the better for them and their future, the better for their families, and the better for the economy, and the better for New Zealand. I think hopefully you've all seen the policy document and the press release, and with that, Lou and I are happy to take any questions you may have.
Do you believe people living on welfare should have dignity?
Absolutely.
Are you eroding their dignity?
No, what we're saying here is that the vast majority of people receiving the job seeker unemployment benefit will be fully meeting their obligations, and be looking for work and be preparing for work, and that's great, and that's all we're asking people to do. But there will be some people who are actually not meeting those obligations, and what we're just being really clear with them is laying up a set of expectations around those obligations that they have. In a country like New Zealand, you have rights to be able to get the support that you desperately need when you need it, and that's what the safety net is there for, and the welfare system is there for. But you also have a responsibility to your fellow citizens who are the taxpayers who are funding that welfare system to make sure that you're doing everything that you can and you're holding your end of the deal up by making sure that you're meeting your obligations.
What evidence?
Sorry?
How many people have been modelled hitting that red track? Like, how many people are...
Well, I'll let Lou talk, but roughly, there's about 85% of people already on job seeker unemployment benefit that are completely compliant and meeting their obligations. There's probably about 15%. Once they get 1 or 2 warnings, they then actually become compliant again. And actually, it's a relatively small group. But we just want to be really clear with everybody. Hey, listen, this is the deal in New Zealand. We have rights, which is you get support when you desperately need it, and we are here to help transition you into work. You're already being deemed by virtue of being on a job seeker unemployment benefit as someone who can work or be prepared to get to work within a 2-year period, and all we're asking you to do is be clear on the obligations and therefore the consequences that happen.
Why do beneficiaries need money management? Aren't they watching every cent that they're spending?
I'll let Lou talk to that, but I think it's a good step forward.
What's a good step? So one of the things that's really important is the introduction of 2 non-financial sanctions, and that's really the key difference. So the obligations are no different, but the consequences are. And so the option of having money management, which basically will reduce some of the choices available to somebody who's on a job seeker benefit, is, I would have thought, far better than having your benefit reduced. And that's why we have very deliberately introduced 2 non-financial sanctions.
So how much money is going onto this money management card?
So basically how it works is, and it's a system that is already in existence, we would just extend it. You would have your rent paid, your set bills and any debt, and then of what is remaining you would have 50% that goes into your personal account and the balance of the 50% on your payment card.
What is remaining after you pay for all of those things for a beneficiary? Do you know how much the benefit is?
Yeah, absolutely.
$240 a week.
So it's $340 a week for a single person who's on the job seeker benefit. So that if they
Post bills,
yeah, no, but in addition to that, they might be entitled to accommodation supplement, etc. So let's just keep it simple and say it's $340. And what we want to do, let's be clear about it, is have sanctions that are not financial. We think it's really important that people face consequences if they don't fulfil their deal in terms of looking for work, taking very sensible, practical steps to look for work or to prepare for work. And this is a non-financial sanction. And that's what I've been working hard on, is to make sure that the only final sanctions don't mean that somebody's benefit is cut, reduced or gone completely.
Is your goal to reduce the number of beneficiaries on the job seeker benefit to the number that it was when the National was last in government? Is it going to be a 45% reduction of job seekers?
My very clear goal is to support more New Zealanders into work. And we know that an individual or a family will always be better off at work. They'll have more choices and opportunities. So while today I'm not going to stand here and give you what a target is, I'm very clear that person by person, family by family, we want Kiwis in work.
No idea how many people are going to be going off the job seekers benefit into work with this policy.
So here's the challenge at the moment, is Treasury is forecasting that the unemployment levels will go up. I'm really clear, what I want to see is more Kiwis in work. And that's why we've come up with a very practical policy today. We want to ensure that job seekers know exactly what they need to do to get into work. We want to make it really simple for them to know whether they're on track or not.
So you've got no modelling that tells you how successful in your terms this policy will be?
Well, we want to see more job seekers in work, and I'm really confident that this will do it, because it will make it clearer and more simple for those looking for work to get into work. And if I think about organisations that are working with people who are on the job seekers benefit, one of their biggest frustrations is when people don't turn up. They don't reliably turn up to do the work that the organisations can provide for them, and there is no consequence. That is incredibly frustrating.
Every person that gets a red alert then ends up in a new job, or are there going to be people out there who have no safety net whatsoever?
No, that's not the policy. The policy is about job seekers and providing practical support to assist them into work. That's what we want. And when people aren't going to job interviews, they are not turning up to work and income, they are not attending training, no surprise, they're not going to get a job. You're not going to get a job if you turn up to a job interview in your pyjamas. And that is the story I heard from an employer last week. It's not going to work.
But the
Can you expand on that anecdote? Who's turning up in their pyjamas to a job interview, and why are you putting that on all beneficiaries as...
No, we're not. I mean, no, I think that's really unfair to be suggesting that.
outrageous.
No, it's not. What we're saying very clearly is we've had a government that's actually put 60,000 more people on a job seeker unemployment benefit at a time of record low unemployment. We have a number of employers, sectors and regions across New Zealand that have struggled to get workers. There's been a massive worker shortage in New Zealand. If you cannot move people off welfare into work, which is a much better pathway for them and their family and their future, that is a big problem. And I think that's one of the... No, but I'll get there. But one of the outstanding legacies of this government is going to be actually how on earth, in a low unemployment environment with worker shortages up and down this country, have you managed to put 60,000 more people on unemployment benefit? That is not good for them, and it is not good for the country for that to be in that position. All that we're talking about here is if you are on job seeker unemployment benefit, the deal's really simple. Your fellow citizen is paying taxes to be able to fund a welfare system that supports you in between jobs. And that's why you're deemed to be on job seeker unemployment benefit. I'm not talking about anything else, we're just talking about people on unemployment. Of those people, what we're saying is the vast majority actually comply with the very simple obligations that we have for them. One is that if you should be looking for work, and otherwise you should be preparing to be in a position to get trained and to be able to be ready for work in the future.
What are the circumstances do you think that leads a person to go to a job interview in their pyjamas if this is indeed true? Do you not think that there might be mental health considerations there, poverty considerations there, and you're standing here taking the
Sure,
piss out of the
but they are deemed to be on unemployment benefit, which is actually they are deemed able to be working. They're not on a supported living payment, which is actually you cannot work. What we're talking about here is just making sure we're very clear about the obligations. It's very simple. We just expect you to be doing two things. One is applying for jobs and actually getting into work. That would be good. And if you're actually not ready for work, it might take a little bit longer. You are preparing for doing that. And you're just doing everything you can to make sure you're meeting that obligation. The vast majority of people receiving unemployment, 85% plus, I suspect, are doing that. Others, when they get one or two warnings to say, hey, listen, you had a job interview in place, you didn't show up for it, that's not cool. Actually, when reminded of that, actually get back on the program. And what we're saying very clearly is here's a series of cascading obligations that you have. If you've got one or two warnings, if you've got three, then we're going to be in a much more serious set of consequences. I think that's fair. I think that's responsible. I think that's actually doing the right thing by people actually who we want them to get into work, because that is a much better pathway than sitting out on welfare. We know what that looks like. That is subsistence and poverty, essentially, that we're actually trapping people into for a lifetime. We care about these people. We love these people. We want them to do well. We want them to be able to flourish, and we actually need to make sure they're clear about the obligations. And particularly when this country has a massive amount of worker shortages, and we have New Zealanders that actually we want to get off welfare and into work. So we've got to do everything we can to do that.
Sanctions are a blunt and ineffective tool, though, according to the welfare expert working group. What evidence do you have that sanctions will shift the dial
I'm sorry, but when you are on unemployment benefit, which is there designed by the people of New Zealand saying, we care about you, we want to help you transition between jobs, we understand there might be a short-term need for you to be on unemployment, you are deemed capable of working. That is the assessment by which you then have been offered that benefit. And so let's be clear, your job is to get a job. Your job is to get off welfare, off unemployment, into work. And so all we're saying here is let's be clear about the traffic lights as to what's actually required. This sort of approach has worked in Australia since 2018. Very similar model, just making clear that the obligations are here. Because we are going to put rights and responsibilities back into New Zealand. We need to do that.
My question, though, is do you have any evidence that sanctions will shift that dial to push people?
I think they will. We've seen that with our Welfare That Works program. Actually, we work really hard with those young people. We work with them to get job ready. We put a job plan together. We get community organisations alongside to work across literacy and numeracy. And then if they fail to take the job or not stay in the job, then there'll be sanctions at that point as well.
idea how many people are going to be moving off the job seekers into work as a result of
Well, no, but people, the total number of people that are unemployed in New Zealand, about 180,000 of them, 175,000 of them, that is contingent upon us actually growing our economy and creating jobs for them. But this issue is a different issue. This is about an issue where people actually are on unemployment and actually not meeting their obligations to find a job when there are lots of jobs available in New Zealand. Over the last 2 years, any of us could walk down any main street in any provincial town across New Zealand, and there will be situation vacant jobs available in every store, and we could all get ourselves one or two jobs, I suspect. And so we want to do everything we can to get people into work.
You heard today that they want more migrant workers coming into the country, but are people going to hire these people that you're pushing off the job seekers with?
Well, what we want is we want New Zealand employers like this to be able to hire New Zealanders rather than having to actually go to immigrants to do the jobs. Part of the reason why we've had such a high level of migration is because we've got 60,000 more New Zealanders that could be working that have been added to unemployment benefit over the last 6 years. That is not great at a time when we've had 3.2, 3.6% unemployment and worker shortages in every sector in every region. So there is opportunities for people. We need to work hard, yes, to work through people's challenges to make sure they're work ready. That may well mean numeracy, it might mean literacy, it might mean addiction services, all sorts of things to work with that individual to get them prepared and ready to take on a job. But you cannot be in a position where people actually, after 3 or 4 warnings, actually are not meeting their basic obligation. That's not fair to the taxpayers of New Zealand who are actually subsidising that and actually want to be able to support a safety net, not to have it, not to meet their obligations. Sorry.
This policy will force people into low-paid work. How is that not trapping them into poverty?
Well, I'll tell you what's trapping people in poverty is keeping them on welfare.
So
I mean,
the
the better
low-paid work,
pathway,
they'll be losing
the
a lot
better
of money over a longer period of time because they could have potentially got a higher-paying job. If they
No,
were
the better
breathing
pathway
room.
for everybody is a life of work. That is the better economic.
On low-paying
No,
work.
you've got to start somewhere. You might have to start, yes, on a lower paying job, but you actually want people in work, actually contributing, actually doing what they need to do, moving forward with their lives because of work.
But what evidence is there that this will work?
I can tell you what is the evidence is not putting 60,000 people extra onto unemployment at a time when we have all these worker shortages and opportunities for New Zealanders. We know that a work opportunity is better than a welfare opportunity for Kiwis and their families. And so we want to be doing everything. We know that we've got work to do to make sure those people are actually supported and encouraged, and we're working alongside them to get them job ready to be able to take on work. But in the long run, a life and work is a much better outcome than a life sitting on welfare. And so we want to make sure we're doing everything we can to support those individuals because they have so much potential, they want them flourishing, and we want to do everything we can to get them prepared for work and being successful at work.
Community work.
Sorry, I'll come back to you, Derek.
Do you accept that sometimes there are mitigating circumstances where obligations aren't met, like the childcare fell through? Or
Sure, and we're being reasonable about that. But what we're Yes, because that's why we've got a cascading system where to say, look, we understand there'll be reasonable reasons for why people can't do that. But what we're just saying, obviously, to the small, we're saying 85% of people are compliant. They're waking up trying to find a job or preparing themselves for work. That's great. That's what we want to do. Yes, there might be people that actually, get 1 or 2 warnings because they've actually missed a job interview, and there might be extenuating circumstances. We're good with that. We might need to be able to check in with them a little bit more regularly. Sorry?
Should they get a warning if that happens? Or they should
No, we'll be sensitive to genuine issues where there are problems. But when you've had people who are serial not showing up at job interviews, we need to make more powerful interventions to actually get them either into a job or prepared to take a job.
How will that actually work though? Will you give WINS some discretion over, stepping people?
Yeah, I'll let Lou talk through the amber and the red light piece of it. Yep.
Yeah, so work and income have discretion at the moment. So if you've got someone who has an absolute valid reason that they couldn't get to that job interview, of course they won't get a warning. But just think about, we want to keep people in green, and they are actively looking for a job and will get into employment. Where we want to also prevent is if they get into orange, there's additional support. We want to catch people before they are stuck on welfare for a very long time. So if there are some challenges, we absolutely want to make sure those challenges are addressed. That's why the orange stage is about additional support, additional check-ins with work and income, making sure people get the support they need. It might be additional training. This is very fair, it is very reasonable, and we want to see more Kiwis in work.
If it was a situation like childcare falling through, for example, they'd have to prove that their childcare is falling through, and that's why they missed that.
Yeah, that's fine.
What you'd expect?
Look, they have good relationships with work and income, and look, having been someone who's been there myself, it is incredibly challenging, and I get that. And life happens, and you have to deal with things that are unpredictable. And work and income have great frontline staff who can support people through those challenges. But the key is we want them supported through those challenges and to come out the other side and get into work.
If it's up to work and income discretion, what will you be doing to ensure that there aren't some employees who think that missing an appointment or something because of childcare isn't a reasonable?
Look, I think you're overblowing. We can manage the extenuating circumstances where there are genuine reasons for why someone hasn't been able to show up for a job interview, for example. What we are not up for is serial applicants actually not showing up for jobs, not taking jobs that are available. Everyone's focused on if you receive the job seeker unemployment benefits. It's a pretty simple deal. We are here to help you. We're going to do everything we can to get you job ready. If you need work on certain skills, more training, whatever, we're going to make sure we do everything we can. We believe fundamentally in our core that work is the way in which we solve poverty in this country. We have to grow our economy. We have to create opportunities for people. We have to work harder at building a society that's built on opportunity, and we have to work harder on education and health and a whole bunch of things. But we actually have to create an economy that grows jobs. And then when we have a situation like we've had over the last few years, where we've had lots of job shortages, we've had record job shortages, if you can't get people off welfare into work now, God help us. And that's the frustration with this government. They haven't done enough at a time when our economy needed lots of workers and had huge opportunities for people to get people off welfare and into work.
Community work experience.
So I'll come to you, Jen.
Community work experience sounds a lot like community service. What's the difference?
Well, it's basically getting people familiar with the routine of work and the discipline of work. And so whether they're working in community organisations or volunteering with iwi or whatever it is, actually that habit and that is actually a good thing for people.
But given the similarities, are you treating some beneficiaries like criminals?
No, we're not. No, we're just saying to people there are rights and responsibilities in New Zealand. You can't just take the right of actually getting the help and the support that we want to be able to offer you without holding up your end of the deal and having a responsibility to say, I'm doing everything I can to find a job, to take a job, or to prepare and get ready for a job. You know, this is common sense. It's just common sense, basic fairness, and it's us also, I think it's about how you show that you're compassionate about people and you care about people, is actually you want them in work. We will do everything we can to get them work ready. We'll continue to put the support into places. We'll continue to work on addiction issues or numeracy or literacy or whatever the challenges actually are to prepare somebody for that. But once the opportunity's there, we expect people to step up to the plate and hold their end up and actually take those opportunities and deliver on their obligations. Sorry, Jenna.
Do you think that Kiwis believe you can pay for your tax cuts?
Absolutely, yes, they know that Kiwis know that we can pay for our tax cuts because we have built, as we've talked about before, very conservative assumptions around the revenue collection pieces. We've put conservative assumptions throughout that tax plan. In our first year, we actually generate a surplus of $500 million. We'll see there'll be lots of buffer also in our fiscal plan as we go forward, which we'll announce this week. Well, what I'd say to you is my message yesterday is pretty clear. This election is going to be close. Every single MMP election is close. I want New Zealanders to understand what is at risk. If we've had 3 years of an absolute majority Labour government who can't get things done, imagine what a hell of a mess it's going to be for the next 3 years. And so my message very clearly is that I want New Zealanders to understand there's a lot at risk, and my point from yesterday was party vote national, and my strong preference is to have a strong, stable two-party coalition government with National and ACT. We are going to deliver tax relief, as we have said, to low and middle income New Zealanders, because that has been the unfairness in our tax system. We are going to deliver tax relief to New Zealanders. And again, my message to New Zealanders is in really uncertain times and very difficult times for this country, think intentionally about your party vote, because it really matters. It really matters.
$700 million that you need to find, you can do that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you can
Absolutely.
foreign buyers.
Absolutely. As I said to you,
Where are you going to find it?
well, I've said to you already, we have built, we are very confident in our assumptions, as we've talked before. I appreciate you want to challenge us for the last couple of weeks, but the point is that we have also built in huge amounts of buffer in our assumptions around our tax plan. We have built buffer into our fiscal plan as well. And so I am very confident we will deliver low and middle income tax relief. In fact, we need to do that because New Zealanders out there who are waking up this morning at 7 a.m, slogging their guts out, going off to work, paying their taxes, getting their kids to school, taking on a second job, cannot get ahead. And in this country, we are going to restore the promise that if you work hard, you deserve to get ahead, and you will get ahead.
Where are you going to find that $700 million if you can't do a foreign buyers tax?
We are going to do a foreign buyers tax. That won't be a problem.
If Winston Peters doesn't let you do it, where are you going to find the
Well, I'm saying to you that is not my preferred option. My preferred option is to be in a National ACT coalition government,
whether or not you do the foreign
and that is why
buyers tax
6 days to go. 18 days until the election. I want New Zealanders to understand very deeply to party vote national so they can give us a strong, stable government to be able to deliver the change that New Zealand desperately needs.
Pretty massive promise to do it without your foreign buyers tax.
I'm telling you, we will deliver tax relief for middle and low income New Zealanders because they deserve it. And I think when you talk to New Zealanders and say we're going to take some wealthy foreigners coming to New Zealand buying luxury homes at a 15% tax, that's all good. But the good thing is that we've also identified many other revenue sources as well as also savings in that tax plan.
Couple guys, we're out of time.
If your numbers don't add up.
What New Zealanders care about is getting tax relief, and they're going to do it. And I've talked about this for 18 months. Many of you here, we've had these conversations about our tax plan. It is not complicated. It is about giving New Zealanders tax relief because they've been caught in higher tax brackets. I trust them to spend and save their money as they see fit. As you know, many of them, half of them will probably save it, half of them looks like they'll actually spend it.
Take a crack at answering that question.
Sorry?
Do you want to take a crack at answering the question that I asked you? Do you think that New Zealanders care if your numbers don't add up?
I think they should. I mean, we're going to be very responsible, prudent economic managers in this country. That's what has caused the problem and pain and suffering for New Zealanders. We have a government that's proposed to take GST off fruit and vegetables. Nobody believes that's going through to the consumer or to the customer. That's going straight through to supermarkets. On the other hand, we've had a government increase tax on fuel excise tax at a time of a cost of living crisis. We've said we won't do that in our first term. Why? Because it adds to the transport costs that ends up to raising the food prices. So completely inconsistent.
Why do you think Chris Hipkins might still work with Winston Peters despite categorically ruling him out?
Well, look, all I'm saying yesterday is that we all remember 2017. Chris Hipkins was part of the holy trinity of the Labour Party. He's part of the Holy Trinity Labour Party with Jacinda Ardern and Grant Robertson Christmas that decided to go into government with Winston Peters and was in government with them 3 years ago. The second thing I'd say is that, let's be clear, New Zealand First hasn't actually gone with National in 27 years. All I'm saying is... Well, what I'm saying is I wouldn't be surprised if Chris Hipkins picks up the phone to Winston Peters after the election if he fell short in order to form a government. That would be an ungodly mess. Well, I'd just say to you, Chris Hipkins formed a government with Winston Peters and New Zealand First in 2017. And I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised if he picked up the phone and had a conversation. And all I'm saying is I don't want... Fine. Fine. Well, that may well be his position. I would love to. I just would not be surprised if he picked up the phone after an election anyway, given his track record of working with New Zealand First. And what I'd say to you is, again, what I'm saying very clearly on that is that my message to New Zealanders is my preference, my very strong preference is to work with National and ACT. Think intentionally about your party vote and where it's going to ensure that we get strong and stable government. But if the choice is quite simply another 3 years of this malarkey with this government and a coalition of chaos with Te Pāti Māori, the Greens and Labour, that is something that I will then make the telephone call to Winston Peters. And I think that's quite pragmatic. I'm being quite straight up about it and saying that's what people would expect me to do and what I'm obligated to do.
Are you essentially saying, following Jenna's question, that your tax package is on the negotiating block, but your tax cuts are not? No. Our tax package is going to be delivered to New Zealanders. We are determined, as I have been for the last 18 months... Even if the foreign buyers tax can't be brought in? No, the foreign buyer tax will be brought in. It's a good plan. It's a good idea to actually say to wealthy foreigners, if you want to buy a luxury property in New Zealand, to pay 15% tax so I can give some of that money to lower middle income New Zealanders, I'm going to do it. And my message to New Zealanders is you want strong and stable government. You have 8 days to think, we have 6 days to start thinking about how you're going to vote. And my encouragement is strongly vote for the National Party. If you're an undecided voter, if you've never voted for us before, we are going to fix the economy, we're going to restore law and order, deliver better health and education, and I want your vote. Cool. Thanks so much. Cool. Sorry? Sorry?
Can we sit down with us for 10 minutes?
I'll talk
Can
to
you
my
come
team.
to Rustover?
Thanks.